how I set up the day, and one of my things that really just makes things happen really fast and magical, and the idea is to set up the day before the day starts. And so so it's a ritual, and rituals are useful till you don't need them, I suppose, but it's still a ritual. It's kind of like it's kind of like just starts a certain process happening. So I was setting up I went in the room and set up the space before my new patient showed up in San Diego. And the way I did it was you can make your own ritual, but this is a version for Matrix Energetics. I just made a magic circle around the room, and so I did that this morning for us, and then put different people in that I wanted in there. You can put different people in there, or you don't have to. But you could put spiritual healers. You could put Jesus in there, or Buddha, or you could put current people, Richard Bartlett. You could put Hector Garcia. You could put me in there. You could put all of us in there in this magic circle. And there's different things you can play with and do whatever you feel called to do. And one of the things that I like to do is just go clean up the room. So I just go and throw away some trash and make sure there's no clutter, and then just move things just so. Like I'll take this book that my microphone's on and just move it just so. And the way I move it just so is like it just has a feeling. Like it's not like feng shui rules that you have to say, well, it has to go this way because there's a rule. It's like, no, I just want to move that there. I want to move my wand here. I want to move my papers here. I want to draw this little symbol on my paper. I want to move this. I want to move that. And then it just feels like, that feels done. And so now the space is set up. And my rule set is whenever anyone interacts with me, and this is one of the things I don't tend to tell a lot of people, but I feel like telling you, I have a rule set that when anyone interacts with me, they have a massive change, massive healing, massive transformation, and they know it. And they realize it's from this, from working with us, from doing this. Yeah. And they tell their friends and their family and their clients and others who also tell their friends and family and clients and others who have massive healing and transformation and change. So it's a rule set, and you make it a ritual, and it's like it just becomes your thing. Yeah, so you can make that rule set. So I did this with that client in San Diego, and it was the most amazing thing ever. I mean, she came in and told me about all these chronic illnesses and anxieties and depressions and all sorts of stuff. She was on disability and 50 years old, and she was just starting to do some art, taking art classes to paint. And so I had her stand up, and I did this. I'll do it for us right now. I put one hand on her shoulder and one hand here, and I let go. And I went to the feeling of me and Jen in Vancouver, English Bay, on the first day of vacation. And she turned and looked at me, and but before she even turned and looked at me, I had my indicator. There's an indicator that says, "Oh, this is done." I was like, "Oh my God, the session is done." And she turned, and there was no words, but she turned to me, and she was in a physical therapy clinic. She thought she was coming to a physical therapy clinic. I was dressed like a physical therapist. We all were physical therapists. There was an office manager. It was a physical therapy clinic. And she said, "What are you doing?" And I don't remember what I said, but I said something about energy. And then she went to the floor, and then she started to roll around, and then she started to moan and groan and looked like she was in ecstasy, and then looked like she was in pain. And I was like, "What am I doing?" And she started laughing, and I started laughing. So I started to follow her around because she was rolling around on the floor. And I thought, I better at least look like I'm doing something. I'm getting paid. So that's how the whole hour went. And then she got up and she was like, "Oh my God, what was that?" And I don't remember what I said, but I said something about energy. And for the next she came twice a week for 3 weeks. That's what her doctor said to come. And every time was a different version of that. And then she was gone for 6 months, and I emailed her back to see how she was doing. And all of her anxiety, all her depression, all of her sensitivities, everything just went away. She threw away all of her supplements, and she went to Europe. She was able to use a backpack for the first time. Used to not even be able to hold a purse. Went to Costa Rica, was on zip lines, and she started painting, and now she sells her paint in art galleries. So I was like, oh my God, that really worked. So I learned something there, that if I set up the space ahead of time so that it's done, so that by the time I walk in, it's all play, then I still do stuff and it looks like I'm doing stuff, but it makes the world very magical. And you start to see stuff that is beyond belief and easy to like miss. So I was working with a client a couple weeks ago, and she was a new client, although I'd seen her in San Diego many years ago. And in the pre-session, I had set up her space, and I wrote down some things of what she had wanted in her email, and I was like writing it down on my piece of paper and kind of tuning in and everything. And so then she showed up for her session, and so I was like, oh, I'm going to flip the page over. I have no more room. I flipped the page over and I started to write more stuff of what she was saying, and we did a session, and it felt really good. And so I thought, well, I better check my stuff. What did I write before? And I flipped the page over and it wasn't there. And I'm like, my thinking brain was like, okay, well, it's here somewhere. And, it was over on the right side of my desk. And so I started to look all over my papers, and I started to look on the left side. She goes, Ralph, you weren't over there on the left side. And I know. And I'd cleaned up my whole desk beforehand because I'd set the space up to be done. And I looked, and it wasn't there. And so the next session, a week later, she goes, Ralph, did you ever find that paper? And I'm like, I never found that paper. It was like, I know I wrote it down, and I'm pretty sure I flipped it over. For sure, it was under just a very small stack of papers, and I've never found that paper. So it's like the world gets really magical, and it'd be easy to go, oh, come on, it's somewhere here, Ralph. You'll find it someday. It's like it's like you could think that. But and maybe that's true. You'll find the piece of paper later, but it's like I haven't found it yet. It's been a couple of weeks. So so this is a really useful thing to do, especially like day traders, healers, business people. It's just a matter of getting a ritual that you can use. And so my ritual is make a magic circle, bring some people into the room, clean up the space, throw away the trash, make it feel good, adjust a few things, and then just know that your rule set is that by the time you show up, it's already done. Yeah, so I did that for all of us. And then what we can do right now